I'm Paul Dix. I'm going to show you something I did. Actually, my name is Pat Nakajima. So who here uses bookmarklets? Yeah, I know. So basically, like if you look at my address bar up here, I have readability, read later, subscribe for Google Reader, read CSS, and DOM monster. Those are all bookmarklets. I'm all about bookmarklets. I'm always making bookmarklets. So I made this app called Bookmarklets Factory that basically lets you make bookmarklets. Layout's kind of screwed up here. Here we go. Does that look okay? So to create a bookmarklet, you click here to create one. What's the name of it? It's going to be like, hello. That's not how you spell hello. Hello, GORUCO. No password, but if you put a password in, it gets stored in plain text. You can edit it later. But for now, we're not going to do that. We're just going to say, alert, hello, GORUCO. I hope I spelled that right. I don't really care, though. That's the code. Description is demo for GORUCO. These text fields could have bigger font, but whatever. Create bookmarklet here, and hooray. So I can drag that up here to my bookmarklet dealie and hit it, and then it's all like, hello, GORUCO. And so there's some other ones here, too. I was really, mad one day, so I was reading Engadget, and I was like, I don't care what these guys have to say. So there's these comments down here, and I was all angered by it. So I have this shut up Engadget bookmarklet. So you put that up there. Hey, OK, shut up Engadget. Oopsie, my bad. Hit it, voting down 100 links, and they will just start to be voted down. You can view the source. It's pretty simple, and syntax highlighted. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's my thing. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Brown, and I'm going to show you some completely useless code that I wrote yesterday during a not very interesting talk at Mongo NYC. And it uses Redis, which I thought was appropriate. So basically, I hate ORMs, and I especially hate ORMs that make you constantly think about the fact that you're using an ORM. See active record. And I think in an ideal world, we could just deal with objects and never think about persistence, even though they, they are persisted. So what you have here is just a couple of classes. They're inheriting from red object. And if you want, I'll explain the name later. And then they're just attribute accessors with an R in the beginning. OK, so that's that. So let's do OK, so I've loaded up the little red library and that test file we were just looking at. So I'm going to create a new post, and the post can have a title. And then I'm going to give it a blog. And so the blog has a name. OK, so I'm basically just dealing with Ruby object here, but this is actually now persisted in Redis. And every time I did just a method access there, it was immediately persisted into Redis. And so right now, this is like half an hour of work, but you can get a Redis ID, and there should be an easier way that's isn't explicit about the fact that it's persisted. But so you can get a Redis ID, and then I can I can close IRB. I can be on a different machine or whatever, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to. So I'll just use this hash-like accessor. So now here's post 2. Post 2 is not post, which may or may not be a good thing, but it's helpful. So I can now get post 2 title and the blog name. And the upshot here is that so the title was just serialized Ruby string, but then the blog, from the perspective of the post, is actually reference to the ID. So it's almost like you're kind of building this object space, but it's modeled in let's Sorry about that. Go away. It's happening in a persistent store, and there's no concept of like saving an object or anything like that. It's just every time you set one of these attributes, it's keyed to the UUID of the object, and no one should ever use this. But if you think it's interesting, I'm probably going to keep hacking on it in my spare time, and it's on GitHub as of a few minutes ago. So it's out of time, red. That's all I got.
It's very, you don't need to, I don't need to show you anything. So yeah, ORMs are weird. They force you to make a lot of decisions sometimes that you might not want to make. They can influence your design. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing. There is a similar project to what the previous speaker presented about, but it's actually a little less shy about being an object relational model. It's called OM, which stands for Object Hash Mapper in Redis. And what it allows you to do is basically have an extremely lightweight model wrapper to define attributes and things that you might want to eventually persist in Redis. What I like about it is that it allows you to have a low overhead, not really have to think about your schema in advance, and sort of use that throughout the development process. I've been using it to write a very, very young, immature chat server that's persisted by Redis, and also contains a client. It's on GitHub. What I'm using, it's called Motormouth under my GitHub ID MRB, and I highly suggest that everyone check out Ohm because it's young. It provokes discussions about what you should or shouldn't be doing in terms of modeling your data to store in this NoSQL database. And it's extremely fast, and they're keeping things decoupled with allowing you to extend it by simply including a Ruby module that gives it extra juice, like some validation stuff, some typecasting. Hopefully they'll have some way for you to do some callbacks in there as well. But it's currently being produced and used by the CitrusByte guys. And it's also involved in an interesting Sinatra framework that they're working on called Monk that I have played with a little bit but couldn't quite. They sort of want you to use their testing suite and all this other stuff when you pull down Monk 2, which is a little bit challenging for me personally. But I've really enjoyed using Ohm. The developer hangs out in the IRC channel and is a really accessible guy. And Salvatore, who is the Redis maintainer, also pays attention to it. So there's a good opportunity for anyone that wants to get in on the ground floor of a pretty interesting project and do some open source contributing to do that. And so I just wanted to encourage everyone to check it out. I have nothing to gain personally from you doing that, except perhaps your good ideas.
Monk is actually really cool because it uses Git to do skeletons for basically the base application.
That's true. That's actually one of the right. So
set up with whatever testing framework or.
You're right. That's totally to be fair. What he said was that Monk allows you to create distributed, what they call skeletons, for creating templates for new applications. So instead of using the test framework that they have created, you can drop something in, like I think a YAML file or something, and it will instead pull down and describe the other dependencies for you and such, or set up the skeletal framework of the folders within the application in any way that you want. So that's a good point.
And I think they're also collecting those skeletons so that you can go and basically look at a grid of what stack you want, and then they'll give you that stack.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, this all came to my attention in the last month or 6 weeks, and I've been really impressed with the work that those guys have been doing, and I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it, so I thought I would encourage people to check out Ohm, and on that note.
So I'm Aaron Quint. What up, NYCRB and everybody else? I'm going to talk today really quickly about this thing I wrote called Gym, which is your friendly JavaScript install manager. I find myself writing a lot of JavaScript these days, probably more than Ruby, actually. So here's a little talk about that. So what is a gym? I don't know if you guys know The Office, but what is a gym? Gym solves a couple problems. It doesn't solve every problem, and it won't teach you JavaScript. But what Gym does is it stores version.js files on a user level instead of a project level. Some projects that you can compare this to are like Sprockets or Jamit, but it's a little more than that, I would say, but a little less too. So it stores version JS files on a user level instead of a project level. It will provide access to those files per project and in a project, and then it will bundle and compress those JavaScript libraries into single files. And probably the most important thing for me was that it works outside of Rails or even Ruby itself. All you need is the gem gem, and then you can use it wherever you want. I personally use it in a lot of just pure HTML projects. What gem doesn't is it doesn't deal with CSS and images like Sprockets and Jamit do, and it doesn't do multiple bundles yet. Gem install gem, which is kind of fun. Originally, I was going to call it Gem, like the 80s cartoon, but that would have been even more confusing. I like Gem because it actually stands for something, sort of. JavaScript Install Manager. What'd you say?
Could have called it Jericho.
Jericho, yeah, exactly. That's harder to type. So the Gem workflow is really simple. You install something, you init your project, you bundle and compress, and then you pack, which is, I'll explain in a sec. But basically the way Gem install works is that you can give it almost anything. I tried to make it as flexible as possible. So you can give Gem install a URL, you can give it a gzip, which that URL that's going off the screen is just a URL for a plain JavaScript file, a URL for a gzip. You can give it this nifty GitHub / something. You can give it a local file, and it'll even what it'll try to do is unpack the thing and then determine the versions of those files too and the name of the project. So it'll parse out that that's jQuery 1.4 version 1.4.2, and if you have a package.json, it'll parse that out too. And then it installs this in this root file, kind of like Ruby gems, where you have like a listing of all your JavaScript files, and you can do gem list, and it'll list out all the files that you have installed. So what that's really cool for is you can just have like you're browsing the web and it's like, oh, here's this really cool jQuery extension, or here's this really cool like nifty little JavaScript file. I can just do gem install that file and I'll have access to it later and not have to remember the URL. Then you go into your project, you do gem init, and it writes a gem file, kind of like a gem file. What a gem file looks like, it kind of looks like a gem file, but it's not. It just you specify your dependencies and their versions. Then you do gem bundle, and it bundles those like sprockets into a single file, and you give it the path. Back here I gave it bundled path equals public JavaScript bundle, and it'll bundle it there. Gem compress bundles it, and then runs it through Google Closure Compiler. And then gem vendor is another part of the thing where actually if you're packaging up this file, since all the files are stored in this root gem home directory, gem vendor will take all those files in your gem home and install them into a local directory in your project. Gem pack is just this equivalent of gem vendor, gem bundle, gem compress. So the main use cases that I have for it are really, I write a lot of these couch apps, which are these CouchDB-based apps that have no backend other than CouchDB and aren't Ruby-based. So this allows me to do something without having to use something like Sprockets. Sinatra, there's actually a gem rack too, so a rack middleware, so that you don't even have to bundle things. It'll bundle things on the fly. Rails, and my favorite, just good old public HTML. When you're just, index.html / and then /JavaScript / CSS. There's gem. So here, a quick shameless plug. I'm looking for ninjas. I'm the CTO now of paperlesspost.com, and I'm looking for pirate ninjas, actually, and you have to have at least 10 years of Rails experience. You need to be jQuery gurus. You must be related to or roommates with John Resek, DHH, or Matt, and you must be as cool as Pat Nakajima. Obviously, the first one and the last one are impossible, so there you go. Just kidding. You don't have to be any of those things, but you just have to be smart. Come talk to me afterwards. Thanks. I'm AQ, github.com/quirky. Thanks, guys.
Hello, I'm Malcolm Arnold. I don't know Ruby, but I do know why I'm here. I'm here to learn Ruby, and one of the things I've done is team up with Matt Jordan from New York Ruby Meetup. What we're going to start is a SIG for new Rubyists, and we're going to develop that, and we're looking for people who help out with that. We're looking at filming the presentations and the coding and everything to work with new Rubyists. And we're looking for people to work with that as well. And we're going to put that out on the web so that other people can learn from the work that's done and give back to the community. This kind of started because I was looking at different Ruby open source social networking platforms and comparing them to the PHP ELG, and looking at the Ruby ones, which are Enoshi, Tog, Community Engine, Engine Y, and those things. So hopefully what we'll do is we'll actually evaluate those platforms and maybe develop some code and give that back to the community. So if anybody wants to help out with that, please talk to me or to Matt Jordan. Thank you.
Tom Mornini, CTO, founder, Engine Yard, and I wanted to. I've heard a little bit of Rails bashing today, and I have a presentation that I created for our sales group. I do a thing called Lunch and Learns because I heard some feedback on Twitter, which I appreciate, that our salespeople like a year ago were dweebs. And so it was my job. I actually have a thing in my wallet that says, teach the salespeople what they need to know. So this is one of the things I had to teach them, is like, why is Rails cool? So it's not the details, right? It's not all like, what's the feature set, all that stuff. That's Microsoft land, that's Java land. Like, you know, can you do X, Y, Z crazy thing that anything else can do? And comparing features that way is just as silly as, you know, like comparing actresses this way. Like, you know, what's the metric, right? And the answer is super obvious. You know, you pick the one with the biggest box office, right? I mean, it's clear. I mean, you want the people, you need, it's all economics. Like when you make choices in the world, money is the measure of how things work. Like if you make more money, it's good, unless you're doing humanitarian stuff. So it is purely economic, right? But is that true? Like, are we sure? Because that can be confusing, or at least it can be a slippery answer. I mean, you know, it's certainly all economics, but it depends on who you're asking, right? So Natalie Portman, very surprisingly, I think, her movies gross on average quite a bit more than the other woman on screen. But what if she's way more expensive to hire, right? What if, like, her completion rate is terrible, like she just walks off the set? What if she takes longer to make a movie? There are costs associated with all the other people involved. And even worse, I mean, what if like the best talent, like everybody in this room, doesn't use it? So suddenly she's not looking so good anymore, even though, you know, you can say, wow, you know, it's a huge, huge thing. It must be the good thing. So the framework algebra is pretty simple, right? You know, I don't need to describe that. And this is it right here. You know, it's like, who can argue with that? This is the thing that we saw 4 years ago that made myself and my partner create Engine Yard. We didn't create Engine Yard first. We were Rails developers, and we started seeing, man, our customers were super happy. These projects are getting done. You know, this is way better. Like, it was simple. It's not about the details. So, you know, these are the things that in 4 years I've really learned that, you know, these are the pressure points. Of course, 4 years ago, number 3 wasn't true, but it's a huge, huge, huge advantage. You know, Paul was talking about web services earlier. I met with a client yesterday and told him, you got to split this thing up. It's too complex. This is the way forward. Rails makes that easy. All of these things drive revenue, lower costs, and it's all about speed. I mean, I'm a big singularity guy. If you've read the book, if you haven't, you need to. The world is moving faster and faster and faster. You cannot afford to get slow. Because time is money, and it's all about the money. And Ruby on Rails is free, and it's fast. And that is all I have to say on that subject. So go Ruby, go Rails.
Okay, my name's Michael O'Brien, and this is going to be a GORUCO story. So I was finally converted today. I decided to install RVM. All right. So first thing I did was install it using gems, and then read the docs and it said don't do that. So backed up, uninstalled, did the regular. And the first thing I thought was, okay, RVM is pretty cool. How does it work? So where does it live? Which RVM? I don't know if you've done this, but I'll show you what it does. So which RVM? Can you see that? Bigger.
It says which RVM.
Awesome. Nothing. Oh, okay. Where is RVM? Awesome. RVM WTF? Oh, output. Wow.
Use ZSH.
Yeah, use ZSH, type when, so you'll get the copy of the file.
Right, so let me go back to those slides. So I started asking people next to me, hey, what's up? What's going on? I started doing searches and things like that. Actually, there's one other thing. Okay, so let me quit this. RVM, let's switch to REE. Which RVM? Oh, yeah, I knew it was there. Okay, interesting. Let me switch back. And did I do that right? I guess so. But if I launch a new terminal, I have to make this huge again. Okay, still not there. And I started looking through the source, and just for the Easter egg, here's a line. There's several things you can do. At the end, you can say reboot, damn it, WTF, arg, boom, and it reboots. That's cool. And I finally found the line that did this, and I knew through this I would probably learn something new about Bash. And type this, right? Type RVM. There's the function. So what happens is it sources a file that has a function in it. So this is on your shell right now. RVM is a function rather than a typical executable or script that you'd think of. So that's my story.
Okay. So we talk a lot about what we love, which is the web, the technologies, Ruby, and so on. And I have the sense, or it's my perspective, that we don't talk as much as we should about what we can do with what we love. And specifically, we're sort of scientists, like we're experts in the technology that we're working in. That's what we revel in. But so we're building because we enjoy that. But I think it's important to keep in mind the significance of disruption and our power to disrupt, our power to change the way that things are done in society through the technologies we build. And that there's a lot of progress yet to be done and a lot of great improvements to be made. And it takes a focus on finding those opportunities to bring us to that next stage. So for example, these are three major parts of the economy which are basically run by ivory tower priesthoods. So you have lawyers who create this whole language of legal documents which is inscrutable except to them, specifically so that they can make themselves valuable to be hired and so on. So, and then the government's some 30 to 40% of the economy, and there's been very little real opportunity in bringing the sort of Ruby way, the agile perspective into government. So I have a project that I'm working on which is not really ready for regular people, but it's online, and hopefully it'll be ready in a few months. It's called Vote Reports, and the idea is helping people to know who they should be voting for without having to default to something like a party label or something. And it's built on a system of politician report cards where a user creates, like, flags legislation that they approve or disapprove of, and we score the politicians based on those votes on those bills. So this is incidental. This is a way to find, for instance, that like what the rep for this area stands on a certain issue, like the wildlife. But and I think that has power to affect the way that political parties and so on are responsible to their constituencies. After all, unaccountable politicians are basically a legend or a truism these days. So my suggestion, or the way I go about these things is I start with the problem, and I've asked people what do you think is the biggest problem in the world today, the most important problem, and start with that, or start with a list of those, and follow that problem, and go where it leads you. And I'm not sure vote reports will end up being what I hope it will end up being, but I know that it's important for myself and hopefully folks like you guys, to follow these problems to their end. And so I have a call to action, as Virgil would say. Go forth to conquer and win great victories. All right, thanks.
I just wanted to talk quickly about this plugin that we use in Shopify. We've been using it for at least a couple of years, and kind of quietly made it open source about a year ago. But I really like it, so I wanted to share. So it's called Asset Cloud, and basically it's nothing too fancy. It's just a way of abstracting away the different ways that we store data. So in Shopify, users have products that they sell, and they have images for those products, and they have themes that they can apply to their shop, and those themes have assets which include templates and images and JavaScript files and whatnot. So, for example, when Shopify first started, all those things were stored on the file system, and since then we ended up wanting to move the theme templates to the database and the theme assets like images to S3. And so in order to keep everything sane, we have this plugin. And basically it lets me do things like this. I can do here I have an instance of an asset cloud. So I can do cloud layout theme.liquid. So that's like a layout template. And then I can do the value and get the value of it. So that is that's a pretty simple way that it's being stored. Right now it's being stored in the file system, but actually, sorry, no, that's being stored in the database. But if I go into something stored in under assets, let's see if this exists. Well, anyway, so something under assets, like an image or something, would be in the development environment, it's stored on the file system, but in production, it's stored on S3. But since we're using this plugin, then we can just use the same code to access it. So just getting into the specifics a little bit, basically the way it works is you have asset cloud classes, which subclass from asset cloud base. And your asset cloud class defines different buckets which store different assets in different ways. So in production mode, Shopify has like a layout bucket and a templates bucket which stores stuff in the database, and an assets bucket which stores stuff on S3. And when you use one of these keys like assets main.css, the first part of it just defines which bucket you're using. So it comes with things like callbacks and validations. So we have like validation on people's layouts that they have to have certain elements in there that are required for their templates. And another kind of nifty thing is when we made the move from the file system to S3 to store assets, that involved a huge upload of data to S3. And in order to maintain consistency of everyone's assets, we needed basically to be writing to both at the same time, but only reading from the file system while the transfer of all the assets was taking place. So there's this, for example, bucket chain class, which is a bucket chain is a kind of bucket, and it just handles the writing to any number of buckets you want, and then only reading from the first one. And so there's a few simple buckets that the plugin comes with, storing stuff on active record or the file system. And then, basically to implement a new bucket, you just implement these this handful of methods that. So it's a pretty constrained interface for the bucket, which makes it really easy to deal with lots of different scenarios in all using the same interface. There's support for versioned buckets as well, so our templates can be versioned. Anyway, it's a pretty it's nothing fancy, but I really like it when I get to work with it because it makes I think it's a really nice abstraction, and it makes things pretty simple. So, ta-da.
My name is Edward. I work with James at Shopify in Ottawa, which is apparently a 14-hour bus ride away. So if I fall asleep, I'm sorry. Is this guy on? So I'm also the organizer of the local Ruby group, and I noticed that a lot of the group's attendance tended to be the same, like month after month. So we never got any new artists. We tended to get hardcore Ruby people, which is great. We didn't tend to see as many Python people or BlackBerry developers or iPhone developers or whatever other parties that I wanted to see appearing at these things. People tended to be really siloed in their own little groups. I also saw us developing a lot of kind of like trivial, mundane apps. Like they were cool, nice proof of concept things like IOU beer using MongoDB or whatever. But I wanted to work on things that had more of a sense of permanence to them. And I wanted them to be more valuable to my neighbors. I want to be able to talk to someone random in the city and say, hey, I made this for you, check it out. So I realized that there's this thing called open data, and it would do all that for me. So hold on. You're
not very good at Pac-Man.
I suck at Pac-Man. OK, so what I did with the help of several people was I hosted this Hackfest, and it made my dreams come true. We had like 100 totally random people show up. There were families coming together. There was like moms who had just ideas for apps. And I had a room of developers and designers and artists and musicians, and we produced like 20 apps over the span of 4 hours. We had politicians and like the city IT CIO was there and counselors, and it was pretty amazing. We went from like 0 open data. Sorry, before I keep going, does anyone know what open data is? No? OK, so it's this idea of you have access to the municipal government's data. Here's a great example. So if I wanted to know like where all the alleyways were and like where all like the water fountains were, and you might think this is really stupid and lame, but if I can produce an app that just looks at the weather data and figures out how much water your grass got, then I can make like an app that emails you saying like, hey, I'm on your lawn, you need to water me today. And while it's silly, it's also going to save the city like tens of thousands of gallons of water across the entire municipality. If I give you an app that says, hey, this is where the emergency centers are in town, or hey, this is where you can take your kid for like a drop-in center, or this is where the pools are, these are like the opening times of the day. Like this is gonna make moms all over the city happy, it's gonna make parents happy. You can do all sorts of things like, you know where the historical sites in the city are, you could do like an augmented reality thing with your iPhone. Like the possibilities with this stuff are endless. The kinds of applications that you end up with have that sense of permanence and usability for other people, and they make the city really happy. We got like $50,000 are coming up for an app contest to be announced later this year. So really what this long-winded story was about, if you're interested in knowing how to make this happen in your own city, I know that New York is huge on this already. We're just like following you guys. But if you're not from New York, or if you're interested in continuing this stuff, come talk to me. We went from like 0 to 500 people on Twitter within a few months. We're getting in contacts in like Bermuda and other countries, and it's been really crazy. And like, this is IBM and Microsoft's next secret goal, because they keep sending us stuff about how this is like going to be the back end of most cities in the future. Thanks.
Hi, so I'm Daniel Wellman. I work for Cyrus Innovation here in New York. And I want to talk about a project that I started working on. Maybe it'll help you. And if you're interested, maybe you can help. So first of all, has anybody here read Michael Nygaard's book, Release It? It's a great book. If you haven't read it, it's basically a book about stability patterns for deploying scalable and stable web applications, or just really any applications of any sort. And if in particular you find it exciting to read about applications that are not your applications blowing up and going horribly wrong, you'll find it a fascinating read. He's a great storyteller. One of the things he recommends in the book is that to test your application, you should build a test harness. Because when your application talks to other applications, chances are that the rest of the world may not behave so nicely. So everything from the other application might connect your connection, but it might not ever respond. Or it might send a byte of data every 30 seconds. Or even more insidiously, there might be a router or some sort of firewall in between your connection and the other end's connection. And say if you have a long-running connection that lasts overnight, your firewall or router might decide to just start dropping those packets and not tell you about it. So he calls this concept a test harness. And so what a test harness does is it just starts up and has a whole bunch of really bad behaviors. And so you should test your application against it before you deploy it into production to make sure that you handle these failures gracefully. So I've started a project. I was looking for an open source implementation of this, and I couldn't find one. So I don't have a laptop or anything, but there's a gem I created called Bane, B-A-N-E. And it's available on GitHub. I could give you the URL, but if you just Google for GitHub and Bane, you'll find the project. Right now, it's a set of basic behaviors like something that'll never respond or something that will hang up immediately. What I'd like to do next is build the low-level behaviors that simulate packet munging, like sending a reset packet on every incoming request, or putting your request into the TCP listen queue, but never ever taking it out. I'm not really sure how to do that. I don't know if you can actually do that low-level kind of stuff in Ruby. I think you have to do it in C. So if anybody's interested and wants to know how to do and wants to help, please let me know. Check it out. Maybe it'll help you.
Thanks a lot. So this is a bit more about software in the business than software in specifics. Particularly, this is more of an advocacy presentation than anything, and that is an issue that I think everyone in this room should be extremely concerned about, and that's software patents. And I can tell you that 2009 was a really rough year for me. Not only was the economy rough, but I got trolled in 2009 and lost about a half a year's worth of effort, lawyers' fees, and a lot of other stuff that went down the drain and momentum in my business. And I want to just talk a little bit about what's broken about this system. Some disclosure, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a software developer. I've been a victim of a patent troll, like I say, 6 months down the drain with my business that we had to basically flush a product and start over because of the cost of the legal process that's involved. And it really becomes when you become cognizant about what the issue is with software patents, it can really be a distraction from what we as software developers should be doing, which is developing our businesses, developing our software, and creating economic opportunity. I'm actually not going to be going into any patents in this one to show you don't have to worry about that, but if anyone's in the international shipping tracking business, you might want to leave the room. And that's dead serious. If you are, it's time, you can get out. Okay, no one good. This is taken from the United States Constitution. This is the patent clause, and it is the key part of it is the first sentence, to promote the progress of science and the useful arts. And I would argue that software patents today are not doing that anymore, and that if anything, they're actually hindering progress in the useful arts of both the arts and sciences. So a little bit about how patents have And a little bit about how patents have changed over time. When the patent system was designed, it was pretty much physical things, tools, machines, and they were very concrete things, and you used to have to cart your item into the patent office and actually show it functioning to the patent examiner so that you could get your patent. Well, today, you don't have to have a working implementation. If you've read any software patents and you're a software developer, you probably look and go, this would never work. They cover abstract ideas, methods, algorithms. We're not supposed to be patenting these things, but the patent office is rubber stamping stuff that you would not believe. And the claims, and this is the main thing that pertains to software developers. We understand orthogonality in software, and I'm going to cover a little bit about how orthogonality has gotten into the patent process. And it is what is really killing us when it comes to software patents. So if you've ever looked into a patent, it's basically broken up into 4 parts. You have your overview, your abstract, the description of the invention, which is what most people actually look at and say, oh wow, this is the invention. It's all the diagrams, it's the examples, it's the workflows, it's pictures of what the thing should actually look like, or it might have flow charts of what the software is supposed to do or what the components are in the software. And what's really interesting about patents is you can just rip that out and it doesn't matter the way they're writing them today. The most important part are the claims. Patent requirements. These things must be innovative, they must be non-obvious, they must advance the progress of science and the useful arts. That's what the law says, but in practical application, that is not what's happening today. So, we started with machines, we went to methods, and now software and algorithms. Orthogonality. In mathematics, orthogonality is when you have 2 lines that are at a 90-degree angle so that you can move one without affecting the other. We think of it in software is that we want to program to interfaces, we want to have single responsibilities, we want to be able to take out one component and put another in as long as it has the contract of the interface, that everything else that depends on it shouldn't matter. Well, orthogonality in patents is what's killing us today. Because what patent writers are doing today is they're making the description of the invention orthogonal to the claims, such that the claims cover a broad, many inventions, many descriptions of the invention, because they really aren't attached to the description anymore. And I can tell you that the patent troll that trolled me filed their original patent in 1984. Their most recent filing that they did in 2006 has an only slightly edited version of the same description of the invention with a completely different set of claims. And what's interesting is that the claims have evolved over time to where the first claim took up about half a page, to where the first claim that covers way more than that claim did takes up about 5 lines. Because what they're doing is the language has gone from, oh, well, we're going to do this, 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 and this. We claim this specific thing, this specific implementation, and this is how it works, to the most recent one is a method of tracking any moving object and sending an alert through an electronic means. That's the patent. And all you have to do is violate one claim on a patent to be liable. So if you track anything that's in motion, and send someone an SMS, an email, you put it on a web page, you put it on a report. These guys claim that even if you hand enter the data and then generate a report or email based upon that, that it violates their patent. That's how broad it is. So, orthogonality in patents has an absolutely chilling effect upon the work that you are doing today. And if you think you can hide under a rock, don't run Google AdWords for your product. That's how the troll found us. So, the claims no longer cover the implementations. They're expressed as abstract ideas, or what they're actually doing today is no longer patenting what the invention is, but what the goal of the invention is. So my patent covers the idea of tracking a shipment. Not how it tracks it, but tracking a shipment. Now you look here, I see the incredulous looks out here, and you think, well, how could this happen? The problem is the patent office is so overburdened that they're rubber stamping this stuff. They don't care anymore. Honestly, I think they give bonuses for how many they actually put the patent on and issue them. Well, that's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. If you should see, why don't you read some of them out there? As you can see, about 3 years ago, someone was granted the patent on a method of rocking a swing from side to side by applying a pressure alternately to the chains on the slide.
Yeah, and there's a patent on the color purple, too.
Yes, but the problem is once a patent has been issued, it is deemed valid by the courts, and fighting them costs a lot of money. The patent system as it has evolved in the past primarily consisted of people who were patent holders themselves and were actually producing products based upon those patents. And if you've seen in the past, you've seen many of the bigger software vendors, they cross-license their patents because it's called mutual assured destruction. They don't have any stake in suing the other guy because the other guy probably has patents that covers the stuff that they do. So they don't have a stake in really suing each other. The problem is that non-practicing entities, aka patent trolls, don't produce any products. So no one can come at them and say that they are violating a patent because they don't produce anything. All they produce are patents. So they have no stake in a well-functioning intellectual property business or business environment. All they care about is extracting as much money as they can from people who actually implement the ideas that they come up with. They wait for others to implement them, and then they sue. Our product was a multi-carrier tracking system that we scrape data off of international shippers. If you've ever seen a container on a truck, on a train, on a ship, those are what we tracked. Every single different shipper does it differently. They present the information differently. We thought, well, here's a great way we can make it all consistent. One interface makes sense. The patent that we got sued under was for tracking school buses. But they've made it so general over time. My lawyers, when it eventually came down to it, said unless you have about 7 figures worth of money, that's what it's going to cost to fight it. The typical cost of defending a patent suit is about $1.5 million. And basically, I'm just going to skip forward here because I don't want to take up too much time. Because of the way the patent system works and the litigation practices and the case law that exists today, it's civil law, it's not criminal. Basically, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. And once you get into the discovery process, the patent troll is going to basically look at every piece of intellectual property inside your company so they can try and figure out anything that might possibly violate their patents. And when you can patent the goal and not the implementation, it's pretty easy to violate them. Yes? 2 minutes, great. So, typical defense runs about $1.5 million. The actual process of going through and overturning a patent and getting it declared invalid costs about $10 million in a typical case to do that. Unless you have deep pockets, withstanding an infringement claim is almost impossible. So if you're going to start a startup, you have to be careful about what you're doing. And I honestly recommend that you don't go and look at the Google patent search unless you want to be kind of frightened about what's out there. So what can we do today? There are a couple cases before the court that are going on right now. We have In re Bilski, which was oral arguments were heard about, I think it was about 9 months ago. They're going back and forth between the justices to come up with that. And honestly, if that case is upheld, the software patents will be set back a long way because they have to be tied to a specific machine, and that the Ninth Circuit has said that a machine cannot consist of a generic CPU and processor, memory, etc. It has to be specifically designed for a particular transformation. So that would be a really good step forward. But there's also a movement on amongst people to actually go back into the case law going back into the 1800s. And there's two interesting cases, Atlantic Works versus Brady and Railway Company versus Sales, both back in the 1878 and 1882, that deal with braking on railway cars. And you think, what does that have to do with software patents today? And interestingly, it has to do with a whole lot of it, because the whole idea of patenting the goal started back in the innovative period in the railroad period. Remember, railroads used to be high technology, very advanced stuff. And some of this stuff is being brought up The GNU project has information on software patents, and there's also the, oh jeepers, the name is slipping my mind, but there's endsoftwarepatentsnow.org, I think is the domain name. And honestly, if you're thinking about starting a company and you're in the software business, you need to care about this. And I didn't care much until I got trolled. It was very expensive, and it basically killed a product that I thought had a whole lot of potential. And it's very distracting, and we don't need them to advance the art and science of software development. Thank you.